Right. Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to an early Friday evening episode of Crypto with English. I'd like to warmly welcome Najah Roberts today. She's the Chief Visionary Officer of the Crypto Blockchain Plug. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard this phrase. Wouldn't it have been great to have learned X, Y, and Z during high school? Often, financial literacy is the one that comes up. Well, her platform, the Crypto Blockchain Plug, is a platform that provides a multitude of different learning modules for people who are interested in blockchain and cryptocurrency. Essentially summarizing it like an outline and breaking things down into, digestible, understandable, bits and pieces. Because frankly speaking, that's really the best way to learn. So, since blockchain is not going anywhere, neither is cryptocurrency. Blockchain and cryptocurrency are going to be part of our financial literacy as as time goes on. And in fact, for those who have kids, especially, I have a 4-year-old. I would want my son to start learning this, subject matter in school. So I might just have to give Najah a call, and sign him up whenever he's ready. So Najah, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
I always talk about, having a kind of forum or a kind of venue where people can learn and digest things in an understandable way. So, if you want mass adoption to happen in this space, you can't essentially be taking a traditional textbook approach, beating people over the head with it, just throwing out dense terms and not really providing a lot of articulation or context for things. So I think what you're doing with Crypto Blockchain Plug is absolutely great. So what made you come up with this idea?
So, traditionally, I come from the financial services industry. And so I just decided really a long time ago while I was looking at the different financial services platforms, a lot of people are winning, but then there's a whole lot of other people that are not winning in the space. And
Right.
so I was really trying to figure out what really made the most sense. And I think no matter what, walk of life you come from, you'll soon realize that the 401k is not all cracked up. It's not cracked up to be what they say it
Yeah,
was.
that's
Just
for
so
shit
much.
sure.
Yeah. And so I really started trying to find what we could possibly do to really help people as they gear up towards retirement. And I don't care what age they are, we need to be looking forward. And so we got into this cryptocurrency space. First, it was introduced to us by some friends of ours who were mining on their computers, on their laptops, by the way. So that tells you a little bit how early it was.
Yeah.
And we thought we were these highfalutin financial advisors that did not need that. Like, what is this funny money on the internet? So we never thought anything about it. So I currently have that very mining computer here to remind me never to miss an opportunity.
Wow.
'Cause
Take a picture of it later if you can.
yeah, one of them is actually on a yacht living, and the other one just added 3,500 square feet to his house
Wow.
here in Los Angeles. So, and they're loving life,
Wow.
right? So that was our first introduction. Second introduction, I was a smart financial advisor. I can do this Bitcoin thing by myself, so I got involved, bought Bitcoin on Mount Gox, right?
Oh yeah.
Nobody told me how to go and program and have my own wallet because a lot of this information wasn't there.
Right.
Left it on the exchange. You know what happened? And then in 2017, someone else introduced it to me again. And I opened my eyes and ears to what they were saying. And it's
Right.
just been game on since that day.
Wow. So this came to you like in layers, like maybe over the course of like 10 years. So like
Yeah,
more or less, right?
yeah.
So I have a question, especially because you have a financial services background. Why are banks, whether they're, the larger or smaller local banks, why are things like 401ks still more or less being pushed? Because I find it ridiculous now. Nobody's making money. In fact, more often you're losing money from 401ks, especially with the way things have just been happening over the past few years.
Yes. So you need the truth, and nothing but the truth.
That's
And
right.
that truth is the fact that they get constant money from you utilizing those services. So I
Right.
tell everybody all the time in this cryptocurrency space exactly this. The reason your financial advisor or banker is not telling you about Bitcoin is because they no longer get a piece of the pie. As
Right.
a ex-financial advisor, every day of my life, right now, today, and I haven't even been in that system and in that space for the last 5 years, I still get a direct deposit from a policy that I sold, a 401k, or a public retirement system account that I set up, because we get what's called trails and renewals. So as long as someone is paying into that, the agent that signed you up for it is still getting commission today. Think
Wow.
about it. If they get you into Bitcoin,
Right.
they're totally out of that equation. And so that's why they're not pushing this, because it's not beneficial to their organization nor those individuals that are working for them that are all on commission.
Right. And by the way, especially coming from a financial advisor background as yourself, I would imagine like many people in your shoes it'd be like easy, like, oh, you know what? Why don't I just keep doing this? Essentially, offer traditional financial products and keep receiving, let's say, these you could say distributions from policy owners and stuff like
Yeah.
that. What made you want to switch into, let's say, blockchain and cryptocurrency, knowing that that's a much riskier unknown space?
Well, I would say yes and no. So there's two parts to that. So what made me want to get involved in it is I actually had a conscience and really start feeling bad a
Yeah.
long time before I got into Bitcoin, but I didn't think that there were any other options. So sitting across the table from families that I would have to look in the face and say, you're going to be able to retire at 65 and a half, when the truth is you probably won't be able to retire till 95. But that's what the company that I work for tells me to say. And so it becomes something that kind of eats at your soul every time you leave out of a
Uh,
house and you're like, you know what?
right.
That is just, I mean, this is the best we have to offer, but there's got to be something better. And then I would look and look and look, and I didn't find anything. And then when I got an epiphany about Bitcoin, I said, that is it. This
Yeah.
is not tied to a system that was designed for the people who put this stuff together to win. This is for the people. And so that was where I was just like, I'm done. I'm not going back. I'm going to figure out how to educate our community, because we're not winning with these products at all. No way, no how.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I was doing when my son was born back in 2017, I wanted to go out and buy treasury bonds, those T-bills and things like that. And I went on I guess you could say, the U.S. Treasury site to do it, and the interest rates were like 1% and under. And these are for like 20, 30-year and up, treasury bonds. And I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would I buy this? Like, this is not even going to keep up with the rate of inflation, much less really give any meaningful return. So, what you said really resonates greatly with me. And in fact, many people that I know who have come from, financial services have said something similar to you. And these are people who've gone on to, the blockchain, cryptocurrency, NFT space. They mention kind of the conscience, aspect of this, because, you're in a position to kind of see how the sausage is made, so to say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
having to tell people that they can retire at 65, where that's otherwise like not the case, I think it's very hard to kind of take yourself and take your emotions out of that, because you kind of
yeah,
feel a little responsible. That's what people have told me anyway. So
yeah.
I think that's a very great, you could say, revelation you had. So when you put together the crypto blockchain plug, obviously education is very important. And from what we're seeing right now, it seems like cryptocurrency and blockchain is really like one of the few things that's actually providing people with upward mobility, so to
Yeah.
say. It's not kind of like this I don't know if it's like this country club, good old boys club type structure on Wall Street, where it's essentially the same players who kind of get the golden parachutes and the windfalls, no matter how good or bad things are. I look at cryptocurrency, you see people coming out of nowhere, becoming very prosperous in this space. And I think for many, myself included, it's very promising,
Yeah.
and hopeful. So when you wanted to educate about this, where did you start? Like, because a lot of people are like, oh, Bitcoin, is this like a money laundering tool? Is this a scam? Is this gonna take my information away, or things like that?
So my situation has been a little bit different. So where I started was at home, meaning I started in my neighborhood. Um, because when I looked at the space and I really got engulfed in the space, I really started to understand that there weren't people that looked like me that were explaining it. And
Yeah.
those that were few and far between. And that just based on my financial services background, I realized that if I didn't do something quickly, we were going to be in a class of people that will be left behind forever. So my mission became greater than my monetization. And I'll just be quite
I like
honest.
that. Mission over monetization. I like
Yeah,
that.
my
Anyway.
mission yeah, became greater than that. And so my husband and I took our regular financial services office, which is where we are right now. We renovated it because what I did realize is the places and spaces that I was going to that had to do with crypto were very upscale and nice. And so I
Yeah.
said, well, if we're going to attract people to come and buy Bitcoin from us, we've got to renovate. So we took our regular financial services office and we turned this into a Bitcoin space. Like there's not, I mean, we have Bitcoin pillows, rugs, pictures. I mean, everything
Right.
you
I
need.
saw it a moment ago. Yeah.
White paper is on the wall. We got the first Bitcoin mag. So we went all out to make sure that this was a Bitcoin blockchain friendly space where the community can come in and start to understand. But that was the challenge. So the challenge was you have a building now, you sell Bitcoin, you're in a community that does not know that you actually need the services that you're offering.
Got
So
it.
now, how do you charge them? And they don't know that they need your service because they don't know anything about Bitcoin.
Right.
So we changed our business model immediately to encompass all things education. So I started doing events like Wine Women in Crypto, On the Block, which is explaining different aspects of the blockchain, Coinomics. Even though Bitcoin is our staple,
Yeah.
we needed to start to have a conversation about the BS coins that are out there.
Right.
So why is this a BS coin? Because this is the owner who's got 50 failed things. This is the way,
Those are
all
good things
those
to look for.
we have to
Yeah.
educate, not just say, oh, you don't like Bitcoin, so you're just done. So we've
Yeah.
taken a different approach to our community because we cannot fight fire with fire. We've got to fight fire with kindness and education. So I do that. I do a crypto kids camp for children ages 5 through 17. Um, we have something called Freedom Friday, which every last Friday of the month we show a Bitcoin movie, have free beer, free popcorn, all of
Nice.
these things just to really meet people where they are. So wherever our community is, we realize we've got to meet them there. So if we do Bitcoin and barbershop, we do Bitcoin and beauty shop. I do cigars and crypto. So I pop up at cigar lounges in the
Sign
area.
me up. This sounds like
And
a lot.
I do all those types of things just
I
to
gotta
make
fly out
sure
there.
that we meet folks again where they are and
Right.
really make it where they can ask the questions. No question is a stupid question.
Right.
A lot of times in this Bitcoin space, we find so many people that are condescending and like
Yeah.
they kind of
Pretentious. Yeah.
it's irritating. But you don't find that with us because how else are people gonna learn if they don't, if they let their guard down and they're comfortable and they ask the questions, then that's when you can get people to start to respond. And I think we've done quite well on that respect, not
Yeah.
financially, again, not monetizing. Education wise, we've done great. And so we've used a lot of our own dollars, um, a lot of our own Bitcoin over the last couple of years, especially during COVID, to keep all of our employees. But this is just really all about the community and what we can do if we really buckle down, focus, and people understand that Bitcoin is the most important. And then if they choose to dibble and dabble in other things, they have to have the purpose they're doing it. And
Right.
I tell everybody I hold Ethereum. Absolutely, I do. I don't hold it for the value. I personally hold it. So if I want to buy an NFT piece of art because I want to
Right.
support somebody, I'm able to do that for the purpose. I'm not thinking that next year I'm going to get $10 million for this painting or this picture that I just bought, this NFT, because I understand that there may not be a secondary market. So I'm teaching people, for a price, you got Bitcoin. For a purpose, you got all this other stuff you choose to do.
That's a good way of
Just
putting it.
like
Yeah.
just like loaning money to your cousin. All this other stuff is loaning money to your cousin. They may or may not pay you back.
Right.
So just know that going in and you're good. But when you get Bitcoin, expect for this value to increase over time, not right away. We're not trying to get rich quick. We are trying to put together something so that we have some financial freedom in the very near future, and our retirement is copacetic. That's what we're doing.
Well said. I like that. And just for some additional context, can you tell everybody where you're based out of?
So right now I'm in Los Angeles, California, which is Inglewood, where the new Ram Stadium is.
Yeah.
Um, and we're in the process right now of just finishing up to start pitching. We're opening 41 locations across the United States.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And when you first started this business, the community that you first started educating, was that in Englewood?
Yeah, it was in Inglewood. Real
What was
tough.
that like? What was that
Oh,
like at first?
it's like standing in the middle of the street and screaming, "There's this Bitcoin thing you all need to hear about." And they're like, "What? Why do I need
Yeah.
that? Money does just fine." And I hear people say, "If I can't fold it up and put it in my pocket, I don't want to hear what you have to say." So
Yeah.
though that's how this thing started for us. But it's slowly coming around. So I'll tell you, for instance,
Yes, please.
I drive a Bitcoin bug, a Beetle, that
Oh,
has
wow.
the words "Why buy Bitcoin" and a phone number. When I'm in my community, usually I drive my little bug. Nobody pays any attention to me. They look at me and they're like, "She's weird." I go on the other side of town, and gentlemen like yourself they're jumping off curves, they're making U-turns in the street, they're screaming, they're blowing their horn, they're like, "Bitcoin!" And then I come over here and it's crickets.
Well, it's funny because that was actually me who passed you that one time. So
Yes. And so now that crypto.com is at the Staples Center,
yeah,
the community is waking up and people are like, they got their cell phone out there like,
yeah,
it's a whole different feel. So I feel like we're growing into this thing we've set up, and finally people are starting to say, "Okay, I need to figure out what this Bitcoin thing is."
yeah, yeah. And as a starting point, when you introduce like a module or a class, as listed on your website, what part do you start out with? Like what's chapter one in a lot of your teaching? Is it kind of like this general like economics, like finance view of things, or is it more?
Oh, no, 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 no. This is a watered down version of how in the heck we're on live. So I won't curse. You can't edit it. I curse. So
Go
why
for
in
it.
the heck are we here at this place when I have this paper in my pocket that spins just fine? Like, why are we here? What is
Right.
the significance? Like, what's the big deal? So I start with the evolution of money. How did we get to this place? How do we get to cryptocurrency? And then what does it mean to me, the person that's listening to this presentation? Because if it doesn't resonate with why this person listening to you should get involved, it just doesn't make any sense, because most people are tuned in to W to that station. What's in it for me, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that's
Well
that's
said.
everybody's tune. And so I try to go into, no matter what I'm doing, I try to go in and make sure that people know what's in it for them, and take that route. But evolution of money is first. If you don't understand why cryptocurrency, why Bitcoin, why was it created? Who the hell is Satoshi Nakamoto? And
Right.
why should I care that he's anonymous? And well, there's several reasons you should care that he's anonymous, because everybody else in history that has spun up a great idea and changed a system that has traditionally ruled everything is dead today. So I think that's
Yeah.
really a good reason for Satoshi Nakamoto to stay anonymous. So those are the
Right.
types of things that people need to understand. So we go through all that.
And speaking of the journey of how we got here, as far as a society and our global financial system, when did you start seeing the writing on the wall for this? Because it seems like everything from 2020 to current, a lot of people were surprised, some people not so surprised, some people are kind of somewhere in the middle. Did you kind of see the writing on the wall with like the hyperinflation, for instance, and some of these other things?
Absolutely. So last year I took a 40, what was it, 41 cities. This year I'm doing 41 cities. I took like a 38 city tour last year, going into the poorest neighborhoods in America, stating that this was going to happen. The writing is on the wall because
Yeah.
in our communities, unfortunately, we suffer a lot more than other individuals because no matter what, we have the least amount of money, just keeping it 100. We have the
Right.
least amount of money, but typically we have the higher prices. Our stores charge us more than they do in suburbia, in the suburban neighborhoods. And so I told our community that we needed to be knowing that because they're printing so much money,
Yeah.
somebody's going to pay for it, and it's going to be us. It's going to be in the
Yeah.
prices of every single item that we deal with every day, such as your orange juice. It looks like it's a half a gallon, but it's not going to be a half a gallon. It's going to be less than a half a gallon. The price is either going to be the same or higher. Most of the time, it's going to be the same, but they give you less product for the same amount of money, and you don't see it because it's subtle. And so, just really trying to help people educate themselves like that. But I told them it was coming. We've been in a camouflage recession for a very long time.
I like
Um,
that. Camouflage recession. Yes.
we
It's a
have
good way of
been,
putting it.
and there were some other things that happened specifically. And again, as much as people don't like to admit that communities are different, let's just keep it real. They are.
Yeah.
And I know that strategically during COVID, they made it very easy for people to get their hands on money because they needed them to spend it to put it back in the economy to keep things rolling, keep the stock market going, keep all these things rolling. And now that money is dried up, and mark my words, it's dried up, it's drying up for
Right.
those that didn't save. And that is why you're going to start to see the influx of crimes, not just inner city, but everywhere, because money is not, I mean, money, I used to call people COVID millionaires. Like we had COVID millionaires. They were getting payroll protection money. They were getting employment development division money, and
Right.
money was everywhere. People got new cars. TVs were, Christmas one year, I never forget driving down the street in the neighborhood, and every trash can had a big, huge 50-inch screen TV box because everybody was shopping. So everybody made money during COVID. The TV, the people who made the TVs, Walmart, the people that did the transportation of goods, and so like everybody was getting paid off this money that was printed and distributed in the communities, but they had to get it to the hands of the people that they knew would spend it. And traditionally, unfortunately, a lot of our communities are consumers more than we are savers, and it's showing up like big time. So I've been telling folks for I don't know a year, and now it's finally starting to be like, oh my goodness, she said save, don't go out and do all this other stuff. Because Bitcoin is the cheapest it's going to ever be, like probably, so that's the message.
Right. And those are all, excellent points you raise. And, by the way, speaking of communities, you're absolutely right about that. No, there's no two communities that are exactly the same. And in fact, many have huge differences in treatment, access to resources, access to opportunities. And it seems to me the financial system here is largely a very historical, political type of machine, so to say. And in fact, you can, there's instances of what you're talking about. If we look at, World War II and when the veterans were coming back, the GI Bill housing loans largely were not offered to a lot of African American veterans who were coming back either from Germany or from France, the war theater in Europe, or coming back from the theater in the East, from Japan.
Absolutely.
So there's statistical, tangible evidence that shows, disparities like that. So even if we're going all the way back to, let's say, 1945, 1946, 1947, that really determines the next generation of so how much they're going to struggle or not struggle,
right.
So to say. And, even in, let's say, New York City and the boroughs, there was the federal housing discrimination cases as well. Same thing. A lot of the veterans, a lot of the Black African-American veterans who were coming back, they were being denied housing and, areas of like Queens and, parts of, Brooklyn and things
Everywhere.
like that. Right.
Everywhere. And so to your point, really quickly, let's think about where most people get their initial wealth from, or where they're able to pull equity from initially.
Right.
And it's their house, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you got a whole generation or two or three that were unable to participate just owning a house so they can get the equity. So it's not that people were lazy at all. It was that there was no access to be able to acquire or amass the same type of wealth building opportunities as everybody else in the United States. And it still goes on today. Unfortunately, we don't even have to go back to 1946. Right now, redlining is still a real thing. Like there is literally still a red line on a map that Wells Fargo uses, Chase uses to dictate the interest rates and loans that are able to come into those areas. Like it's sickening. It's the 2022. We shouldn't be talking about this, but we are. We still are, right? So
you're absolutely right. In fact, when I was a kid, I liked a lot of those like cyberpunk and like science fiction movies, whether it was like Blade Runner, like The Fifth Element, and some other ones. And you kind of see in a lot of those movies, a lot of those issues that you and I are talking about, they're kind of more or less over. And not to, let's say, put it too much on like, well, because everybody's fighting like some sort of alien that wants to destroy the planet. But at least for me, it looks like it looks like we got our shit together. So. It was, it looked very good. You see like neon lit skylines, flying cars, all this other stuff. I still don't see the flying cars part, so I'm a little disappointed when it comes to that. But like, you're absolutely right. This being 2020, you would think that by now this should be a non-issue. This is legit the future. This is like way past the dates of a lot of science fiction movies. This is 2022. So, and yet we're still, dealing with a lot of this stuff, whether it's like redlining, whether it's, you could say, discriminatory lending from banks. Certain lines of credit are offered to certain clients and not to others. These are things that exist, but they're also subtle. So it's kind of in a way, I think maybe certain institutions make it a harder thing to attack, but it's one of those things we all know that's there.
Yeah.
So it's, so
and it's definitely subtle because when you live it, you think that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And until you get into space where you're like, well, wait a minute, that life insurance policy got accepted to my clients in the San Fernando Valley in days, but I'm still fighting to get this insurance policy and implemented here with this person who has high blood pressure, but they have high blood pressure. It just like the disparities, it like literally until you sit in the shoes, you're like, well, wait a minute, something's wrong with this, this picture. And so, yeah, it's subtle, but again, when you live in it, you just think it's normal. And so that's the issue.
And by the way, you added a great point that, a lot of times like the first source of wealth for a lot of people is going to be your house. And, particularly like the equity that you have in your house. So let's say if we're to use like the post-World War II example, if you're having a certain group of veterans coming back to the war who are, let's say, qualified for, let's say, the GI, the GI bills and the GI loans, to essentially get very, very generously rated mortgages.
Yeah.
So you can, move out to the suburbs. Well, if you have one group who's getting that and another group who's not, these things are almost like it's almost like a parasitic effect where it kind of the effects are felt from generation onto generation. So, hard work obviously works, but you know what? There's so much of life that's out of your control. So if somebody does the same level of hard work in an easier situation, you're doing the same level of hard work in a much harder situation, I'm sorry, it's going to be harder.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times, unless there's some sort of magic bullet, once in a blue moon kind of good luck scenario that kind of falls in your lap, it's going to be a harder journey.
We got the magic bullet.
Yes.
It's called Bitcoin.
Right. And I think
it came. Yes. I'm so excited it came in my lifetime. So because now we have an option. We've never before had an option. And so I'm gonna say this, and this is people argue all the time. I don't care if they start black banks, I don't care if they have black just black institutions that still have to report to the Federal Reserve Bank. So what? It's not going to help because you're still going through that same circle. They still have to
same machine.
Those same people. So what? You have a minority deposit institution. So what? You still got to abide by the rules that they set up, and those rules were not designed for us to win at all. If you really, and your listeners can Google this, 60 billion with a B dollars was taken in non-sufficient funds from the black and brown community in 2020. That means they wrote a check or they swiped their card. They didn't have the money to pay for the item they were trying to buy. Can you imagine billions of dollars being taken from the community for non-sufficient funds? That's like you just took money from people that didn't have the money in the first place. But that amount of money is like sick. And then, and nobody, no regulation. So that's why I'm so heavy on Brad Sherman when he says he wants to protect black people from crypto. Well, you didn't protect us from the freaking banks, or you didn't protect us from redlining. You didn't protect us with credit. You didn't protect us from shit else. So don't come protect me now when I can be self-sovereign. I don't need you to do that. I don't need you to make this a space for accredited investors because I'm not, we don't need that either. So that's my stance on this whole deal.
Wow. And that's very, very well said. And I like the way that you contextualize this. I think some of those institutions would only be just, let's say, lip service for black and brown communities. So let's say if you have like a minority board owned bank, it's still only an appendage of really, you could say, the central banking system, so to say. So at the end of the day, you could say they're taking their marching orders from that, not their clients in the actual community.
They have to take marching orders. Well,
yes.
Yeah. Or they shut down their charter. Period.
Yeah.
It's no other way. But we have an option now. So I'm just excited. Mass adoption has to happen. We know that we still need banks. We got to pay our mortgages and our car notes.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I had a conversation yesterday with PNC, the bank.
Yeah.
They basically told me that I cannot hold an account with them if I teach cryptocurrency. They're still doing the same BS.
Oh,
so So the only banks that we can, that's a whole nother show. We can talk.
That's more than happy to have a follow-up episode on that too. I definitely want to.
I can tell you which banks are rocking with cryptocurrency, which ones are not. Chase just claimed that they're not allowing their clients to buy and sell crypto. 95% of these banks, I'm going to say 98, are not. They shut down clients' bank accounts all the time when they find out that they're doing business with us. They just shut their accounts down, shut ours down. It's ridiculous. So it's only 3 banks right now that we can actually rock with. One of them requires me to be a resident of their state, so that's a no-go. Silvergate wants me to have $1 million a day balance. That's a no-go.
Like an accredited investor, like something on that level, right?
I'm starting a business. I'm a small business. How in the hell am I going to put $1 million and hold it in the bank? And then if I borrow that money, that means I'm borrowing money to hold in your bank that I'm paying somebody. Like, it's ridiculous.
So
the other one is Signature, and we still not been. I've been open 3 years. I know this is not about this, but I've been open.
No, please talk about it.
I've been through every single bank you can name. We've had to be creative because in order to deal in the United States, I got 19 employees. I got to pay employees, And
Right.
all of them can't accept Bitcoin. Some of them do, but all of them can't. We're not at the mass adoption. They can't pay their rent in Bitcoin. My tenants can pay me rent, but a lot of their landlords don't. So you still need banks right now.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I can give you a whole hour on what we've been dealing with banks. As of yesterday, I had a whole nother conversation, which is ridiculous. So
Yeah. Well, I would imagine in a true democratic system that should not be the case. I think the freedom to bank, the freedom to, let's say, participate in commerce. I think unless you're doing anything like illegal or damaging to the public, I mean, there really shouldn't be red tape for you to access your own money or for you to
it
further,
should,
grow your own business.
it shouldn't, but there is. And again,
Yeah.
that's them getting cut out, just like Western Union, MoneyGram. They are hell bent on keeping people in that system because they have made billions of dollars just trying to get the regular everyday person's money for them to send it back home to Mexico or send it back home to wherever they're sending it.
Right.
Those are folks that are just barely making it, and you're taking 10% of their money to pay a bill and 10% of their money to send money back.
Yeah. High
It's just
fees.
it's a whole system that has to be revamped. And so I'm here for it. I am
Yeah.
definitely here for it because it's gonna happen as long as I can have my breath in my body.
I
I
love it.
know. Yes.
So, it looks to me, and I think a lot of people would feel like this, it's kind of like a group of people just putting their fingers on the scale whenever it suits them, given whatever, whatever's going on at the time. And it really seems like it's it's almost built to create a class where it's a class that you really can't get out of. So it's almost like we're in a situation as to whatever you're born into, that's your lane and you got to stay there. And, if you speak with any immigrant who's ever come here, the whole beauty of, let's say, this country is upward mobility, the ability to earn as much as you can with your talents and your work ethic. And now in 2022, it seems like everything is moving towards a situation where this is who you are. Your destiny is written in stone based on your ethnicity, based on where you live, based on your parents' income, based on all these different things. And I thought, isn't the whole purpose of, let's say, this experiment, the United States, isn't the whole purpose to actually move forward, jump out of your class, jump out of your lane, you know,
Absolutely.
go for it, punch above your weight.
Well, you know what? There are some outliers. I will say that there are outliers that have had a bad situation and they've become millionaires or billionaires for that matter. There are
Yeah,
outliers. But
yeah,
something else that people never ever talk about, and we watch it happen all the time in our neighborhood. We will go, and I'm talking about African Americans, we will go and apply for a loan to open a store in our own community. We won't get that loan. But the reason why the Koreans and several other individuals that have stores and different things like bodegas and all those things in our community is because they get loans. Because they're immigrants and they come over here, there's special money that they can apply for and get. But because we're native to this country, we don't get those same things. So people are like, I've had this conversation with so many people, so many
sure.
store owners. Well, like, why are the Koreans doing nails and why are there not more black owned? Because we couldn't get the loans to get that done, but they were able to because they come from another country, tap
Yeah,
into a pool of money that we didn't have access to. And that is why, and I mean, it's just all over the country. It's the
right.
same song everywhere. You look at a grocery store, you look at all the things that other people are able to come in here and do. They're immigrants because they have that additional opportunity. And so, unless you're an immigrant, or unless you're born, as you said, where your parents are giving you a house when you
Sure.
get married, or they're giving you our Uncle Joe dies and leaves $2 million in a life insurance policy for his nephews, nieces, and nephews. Like there's just so many different things that people don't really pay attention to because again, we're all just kind of going in our own space, not really paying attention to why things are the way they are. And I think I've been blessed to be able to see both sides of the coins. I lived in South Central Los Angeles, which is considered
Right.
the hood. But my mother was a LA Unified School District teacher. My dad worked for aerospace division. But what they did do was understand that the education here was different because we got the leftover books. We got one telescope for 30 kids. Whereas when you're bused to the San Fernando Valley, which I was, every child has a telescope in
Right.
science. We have brand new books. Those books get used, written up, and torn up, and then they send them inner city because the
I
funding
see.
is. So it's just this whole reciprocal thing that people don't even understand. But I was blessed that my mom was a teacher and she knew the difference. So she made it. She made sure that I got the best education. So I got to see parents that had fabulous jobs struggle in a house in the hood, the same families in the San Fernando Valley, same jobs,
Right.
beautiful house, beautiful cars. And I started seeing the disparities early because I started saying, how is that your mom's a teacher and my mom's a teacher and your dad is it and my dad works for aerospace and they're like barely putting ends together because things cost more in our neighborhoods. And I just started learning a whole lot of different things early on. Since kindergarten, I was bused to the valley. No joke. So I
Wow.
saw a whole lot of differences. And not that I was
You
treated bad.
saw really the whole spectrum
Oh, I
of
saw
life
whole
experience of people in California just from, let's say, that bus ride to and from
believe,
school.
believe it or not, Adam, I was a child in kindergarten in Northridge, California, that when my bus arrived in Northridge, the parents picketed. They did not want us to come to
In
Stagg,
California.
Stagg Street Elementary. And I Google it.
I will.
When when they started busing children from the inner city to the valley, they picketed us. We had police escorts to and from the freeway right here in Northridge, California. From the time I was in kindergarten to the first grade, it started kind of tapering off. But the problem with that was the parents, the kids initially were fine. But if you think about that, if you see your parents picketing and hating the
Yeah.
kids, so
Kids
that
are
it
going to
just
pick that up
started to go.
inevitably.
So we grew up with that tension because the kids started emulating what they were hearing the parents saying and doing.
Right.
So those sorts of things happen. So but I'm really grateful, that my mom said, "Oh no, you're gonna stick it out. Police are gonna protect you.
Wow.
You don't have to worry about." I mean, we would get eggs thrown at the bus and sticks and all that stuff. But believe it or not, that happened right here in Southern California.
Wow. And just for some context, what year was this or what years?
19, well, I'm actually 50. I'm 50. So this
Oh,
was in 1975 when I was bused to Stagg Street Elementary in Northridge, California. So yep, I'm 50.
in 1975,
Well, I'm 52.
picketing,
I'm
yeah, picketing.
52.
And
So in case anybody's doing their math, I'll be
right.
52 in July. But yeah, 75.
Wow, that is beyond shameful. And unfortunately, when it comes to stuff like that, whether it's bigotry and parents who end up creating racist kids, and most of the time it seems like a lot of that is a product of shitty parenting, because that is inevitably where kids first learn that stuff, whether it's from their
Yeah,
parents or their relatives. And shame on those parents too. I mean, those are still kids going
yeah.
to and from school. Those
We
are
were
children.
little kids.
That's
We were
somebody's son or
definitely,
daughter, trying to just go to school, be left alone, do their thing, and do well for themselves. So,
yeah, yeah.
wow. And I have a question too. So you mentioned an interesting point before, and by the way, this also historically exists up in the Northeast. So if you're talking about New York, the boroughs, and parts of let's say northern New Jersey, there is, let's say, a history as well where, let's say, in black neighborhoods, many of the stores are not owned by black entrepreneurs, and let's say often they're owned by different immigrant groups. And for instance, Koreans. Could you it seems like something that is equally shared to and from, whether it's New York or the West Coast. So based on, from what you're saying, so if two people apply for the same loan in a very, for the same type of business space, let's say it's in like a mini mall, and let's say most of those spaces are built pretty much the same, equal access to like sunlight and the view. So if an African American entrepreneur goes there looking for, let's say, $100,000 line of credit just to kind of get things going, let's say a different family or group of entrepreneurs go there. They could be from South Korea, they could be from Pakistan, they could be from wherever. But let's just say, for this example, they are immigrants. Pretty much the latter example of, let's say, the immigrant group will more often than not, maybe something closer to greater than 7 out of 10 times. They're going to be granted.
Absolutely.
They're going to be granted that loan.
And we've done so many studies. I will tell you, there have been so many studies where even just the basic things of renting an apartment, they would send an African-American male in to get an apartment. Then they send a Caucasian male in to get an apartment. Same apartment that wasn't available gets rented. There's been cases where, they've changed the pictures on the wall in the house when an appraisal is being done. They'll get a high appraisal, and then they'll put the regular pictures back up of the black family, and the appraisal's $100,000 lower. All of those things eat away at our wealth. And so, and I'm talking, that study was just done in 2021, at the end of 2021, where they changed out the pictures in a house to get a better appraisal amount. And then they, waited a minute, like the house was sold, and then they put up black pictures, and then they got $100,000 less valuation. That's family wealth right there. That is equity in a property. And so we've really got to, I know we don't want to turn this whole thing but we really got to turn this thing around. And I really feel like we have that opportunity to do that finally. Finally.
Well, you know what? The next point I want to raise kind of dovetails off of what you're saying. So on average, the highest volume of cryptocurrency transactions moves through continental Africa. So I'm talking about Central and Southern Africa. So, countries, whether it's Senegal, whether it's Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa itself, Botswana, like all these countries. So collectively, Central and South Africa, the highest of, I guess you could say, cryptocurrency volume being transacted, bought and sold, goes through that region of the world greater than anywhere else. And I think following that is actually Eastern Europe. So I've had guests, entrepreneurs from both regions, and I asked, why is that the case? And I've gotten a very similar answer, is that a lot of times people either don't trust banks, because in times of crisis, banks keep your money and don't let you get it. And also, there's no infrastructure. These are unbanked areas. So a lot of those, traditional banks that we all know, so to say, that we'll, see on TV and see in brochures, they just simply don't exist, or people don't really have convenient access to that banking system. So when I've had like different entrepreneurs come on from both, let's say, Eastern Europe and parts of Central in, South Africa, people have actually been using cryptocurrency in, you could say, everyday situations, like buying groceries, buying gasoline, buying your necessities, because it's with kind of those survival instincts or wisdom, in mind. So, if you look at El Salvador and how they kind of hopped onto, using Bitcoin as legal tender, if we're to look at this situation another way, areas of the world that are, let's say, second and third world, they're going to have an easier time transitioning and pivoting towards a decentralized banking world, which I think inevitably we're going to end up reaching, versus, let's say, the traditional first world. So if you think of Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Western Europe, because I think in, let's say, our country and the traditional first world, I would imagine the banking structures are going to do their best to at least stop a lot of that progress, or at least do their best to slow it down. And now, if we look at, let's say, second and third world countries, they're already using this. And it seemed like people were, by default, more open to it. I make this joke, but I kind of only mean it like more or less kind of half jokingly. If I was to go outside, let's say New York City, and anywhere, it could be Times Square or anywhere, and if I was to give out like these hardware wallets of Bitcoin, I think like 8 or 9 out of 10 people wouldn't take it because, oh, is this a scam? Is this going to do something? I already have money. It's in the bank. I don't trust this. It's just digital money. But you look at other areas of the world with different histories. They hopped on that train immediately, and that is the future. And I think as comfortable as maybe we like to think we have it with, let's say, the service economy of big banks, these things are ultimately going to be an obstacle. And we're already seeing it. I mean, we have been seeing it for many, many years, but now it's a lot more in most people's faces.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I will say this, because I look at those other regions very carefully.
Yeah.
And we like to think that third world countries are the ones that are unbanked or underbanked. But I also have another stat that states that 65 million people right here in this United States are unbanked or underbanked. Then
Wow.
how do they get involved with Coinbase or Kraken or Gemini? I am it. That is why we're opening 41 locations.
There we go.
Because this building we have, this brick and mortar is needed across the United States because we're not used to, I won't say we're not used to banking. We've been pushed out of banking, but we're using check cashing places.
Yeah.
And so we want to replace check cashing with our Bitcoin banks. And that's what we're setting out to do. Closing down some of these places that have taken advantage of us, getting people into holding their own, being their own banks. And again, with that comes with much responsibility. We're going to have to do a lot of educating. And so I totally understand that. Again, we're here for it. We're going to make this thing happen.
Yeah, because it kind of ends up being this. When there is a situation as kind of a situation in history of like what we're talking about, there's always somebody else who's going to be next on the chopping block. So if, let's say, some people say this is happening in another part of the country, this is happening in another state, another region, happening with different people, it's not my problem. I think what history shows, there is always somebody next on the chopping block.
Yep.
So the fact of the matter is this: we're a lot more interconnected than we like to realize, or we're a lot more interconnected than what we're consciously aware of, so to say. So like you mentioned, 60 plus million people, even just within the United States, being essentially without, underbanked, or without access to banking. That is a huge problem. Without a doubt. So we have a population of what, 375 million, somewhere around that. And we have 60 million of that's not, able to participate in the banking system. That's not,
they're
that's
not
a big problem.
Or there has been something that has transpired, such as they slid a card, they overdrew their account, they didn't have that extra additional $35 to pay back. The account has been closed, and now they're on check systems. They can't even get it back. It's just little stuff like that that sends people on a spiral. And it's not that people are lazy or just sitting around, but hell, these jobs don't pay enough for people to even sustain their families. So you may be that mother that needed to buy that loaf of bread on Friday because you knew you get paid on Monday and you overdraw it. So the bread now costs $3 plus $35, but at least you got to feed your children Saturday and Sunday. So those are the types of decisions that have to be made in a lot of our communities. And right now, the gas is $6.90 a gallon. People right now are trying to figure out, do they go to work or do they eat? Because if you got to put gas in the car or you got to eat, you got to figure it out. So I think that there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen in our community specifically that are going to eventually affect other communities that think that it's not going to happen to them. It's coming. It's coming for everybody. This is coming for everybody. But what we do know is that the Bitcoin halving is going to happen in 2024, and that we can do as much as we can do right now to get ahead of that so that we can have and hold as much Bitcoin as we can
Yeah.
before the commercial folks get involved, and then Satoshis are all we're able to obtain ever because one Satoshi's
Right.
going to be, you know, this is going to get out of hand. I'm sure because everything else is failing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, looking at 2022, what do you and your company have planned for this year? The crypto blockchain plug. What's on the agenda? What are some of the things you're looking to accomplish and complete?
So the first thing that we're going to do, starting May 29th, we will be getting a tour bus. We will be traveling across the country to 41 cities, orange pilling the community about Bitcoin. They Some of them listened last year, but now maybe their eyes are open a little
Yeah.
more. We're going to be giving out Bitcoin on the road, helping people download wallets, making sure that our community is understanding that money is changing and money is changing quickly, and so is technology, and we need to get ahead of this curve that's happening. And so that's the biggest thing we're going to do this year. So we're looking for individuals that are open to helping, sponsoring, all of those things, because we definitely need those things in play. And then when we come back from tour on, we're gone from May the 29th through July 13th, again, 41 cities. But when we come back, we're going to launch, changing the name of Crypto Blockchain Plug to the Bitcoin Bank. We're going to start
I
it
like
here,
that.
and then we're going to open up all across the U.S.
Wow. Who else is doing that? I don't know. Tour bus, like going around the country like that, like a rock band, like doing a world tour. I love it.
Yeah, this is the Bitcoin World Tour. This is
Yeah.
our chance. You, as the song says, you only get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. Opportunity comes once in a lifetime. Y'all
Right.
know you know that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That is that Eminem.
Yeah, that's Eminem. That's correct. Yeah.
Yep,
Wow.
that's it.
And by the way, please give me a shout if if you're heading towards New York or New Jersey. I'd
We
certainly
are.
like.
We
Okay.
are. It's on our list. If you go to the DFR, stands for Digital Financial Revolution Tour. So the DFRtour.com, you will see when we come to New York. And in fact, in New
All
York,
right.
Variety Magazine is meeting us in New York
Wow.
for this event.
That is
So
awesome.
yeah, we're excited about New York. I'm doing some other things in New York that y'all gonna have to stay tuned for. It's really big, but we
Yeah.
we we gotta make it's gonna be a big deal. So we're excited about
Yeah.
it.
Is there anything you want to share about it now? Maybe some little teaser or like a little like hint of
So
it
little
or
teaser
yeah.
is there are some famous folks that want to orange peel a large group of people in New York. And we are going to make sure that they learn everything they need to about this little thing called Bitcoin. We're not going to be no shilling coins. We're not going to be talking about anything else other than Bitcoin, because these people are Bitcoin fundamentalists,
Yeah.
and we're going to educate New York on Bitcoin.
Oh. Oh, I'd imagine Wall Street's probably going to feel a little nervous for that event, so to
Nervous,
say.
nervous. They need to
Yeah,
get nervous. We're gonna
yeah,
call it Bitcoin bets. Get nervous.
yeah. Well, I would imagine some of the suits, walking up and down Fifth Avenue or Madison or around the Wall Street Bull, they're probably going to want to walk the other way, but that might
I'm
also
gonna,
be because they know deep down inside.
I'm
Really?
gonna go and slap a Bitcoin sticker on the backside of the bull. Pow!
Oh,
I'm waiting. I'm
wow.
waiting to get to New York. That
Talk
that is
about
on the list.
I'll tell you this, that will go viral instantly because
I am
everybody
going
sees
to
that.
slap a Bitcoin on his butt.
Right on the bull.
Right on the bull.
That is awesome. Well, listen, as we get closer, to that, and when you're, coming to, New York or New Jersey, please let me know. And if
Oh,
there's anything I can do, get involved or help
we
out.
love
I think
to have
it's.
you come speak. Come speak. Come say a few
Oh,
words to the crowd. That would
I'd
be
love
awesome.
to. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love
let's
to.
do that.
Yeah, and listen, around that time, if you want to do like a follow-up episode to this, maybe even in person, if that's convenient, um,
Yeah, that works.
I'd be more than happy to do that too, because this is really where it all starts. This is how you create mass adoption. And I think this, if you're an American, regardless of where you are, if you're comfortable or if you're numb to the fact that there's other people in sizable populations in this country really going through shit in a living hell right now, don't rest easy. If we're to look at our country, it is like the human body.
Yeah,
If the rest of the body is healthy and then some part of the body is open, filled with gashes and infections and gangrene, that is going to change the overall entire function of that body. So if you have like a gangrenous, rotting leg, but oh yeah, the health of the rest of your body is okay. Anytime you walk, anytime you move, anytime you eat, anytime you think, anytime you sleep, you're going to feel that. I think we all have a vested interest in each other's success. And I think blockchain and cryptocurrency is one of those places where it's apolitical, it's not really at the mercy or the control of a third party. So if you want to go for it, if you want to punch above your weight and fight for your dream and fight for what you want to do with your life, this is going to be the most fair
yeah,
forum to do it,
yes,
regardless of who you are, anywhere on the planet. If you really want, let's say, a fair game where you bring your best, you bring
yes,
your experience and your talents, then this is the space to do it.
yes,
This is really the space to kind of reveal to yourself who you are. Go for it and see how far you can take it. Because
yes,
listen, it doesn't do anybody good to play in a rigged game. It doesn't. And if it continues the way it is, it's really just going to be the same. It's really just going to be the same people who are going to be, charting their yacht and, somewhere in the Long Island Sound and, kind of, let them eat cake type of attitude, while everybody else is either at each other's throats or just trying to survive. You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I am very excited, Najah, for, your project with Crypto Blockchain Plug. And I guess you could say the next, next transformation of what it's going to be. I love the idea of, kind of the sticker on the Wall Street Bull. I think that will be a very poignant statement, to say the least. And who knows, maybe it's going to become a Bitcoin bull, or it's going to become something else, some sort of other crypto, type type of animal, I suppose. Because I think right now, there's almost no way to hide the malfeasance, the corruption, or just almost the intentional sabotaging, of what's going on right now. It's out in the open,
Yeah,
and it's not even really being hidden all that well anymore. And people are still suffering even more so than ever. And really, a grassroots go into your hometown, go into your town, and doing this on a tour bus. I mean, this is stuff that like Prince would do. This is stuff like Motley Crue would do. Like, you go on a tour bus and you show up to that person's town. You're always going to draw a crowd. You're always going to get the message out there as far as what you're doing. And I like music, and I play. I have an electric guitar that I play, so I love the history of music and things like that. So when you said tour bus, I'm thinking like Earth, Wind, and Fire from like the late '70s to early '80s. I'm thinking Prince, from Purple Rain. I'm thinking like a whole list of great artists.
that's what we're doing. That
Yeah,
is exactly what we're doing.
yeah. Well, listen, Najah, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I am very excited, and I think this business model and this philosophy and this mission, this is what's needed. Sometimes people want to help themselves, and people really do want to work their ass off, or as they say, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But they kind of need to see what direction to go in, and
Right.
and if it's completely dark and morbid and obscure around you, you're not going to see that. And sometimes you know what? Going to somebody's home, going to somebody's town is really exactly what's needed. And I think by doing these things, you're going to kind of flip the switch in a lot of people's heads who are, let's say, struggling. They're trying to figure out where to navigate in this space and they don't otherwise know. Sometimes it just really takes that one moment or that one individual or that one interaction for stuff to make sense for people. So, you know, again, Najah, thank you very much for coming on. I'm looking forward to this summer and your tour bus and the Wall Street Bowl.
You bring that guitar out and come play a song for us.
All right, yeah. And I got my amp right here, and yeah, I got my equipment. So you let me know.
That'll work. You'll be getting the email shortly because I'm putting you on the runner show.
Okay. I'm very much looking forward to it, and yes, keep me posted. I'll stay tuned. I'll let the viewers know as far as when more updates come, and if there's anything you want me to specifically let people know, I'll be sure to do that.
Okay, and I appreciate you and thank you for having me on.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having you on. Had a great time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Take care. Bye.